Have you ever actually shot anyone? My cousin Parker laughed, raising his beer bottle as if the whole thing were a massive, hilarious joke. The rest of our extended family at the crowded Thanksgiving table joined right in, chuckling at the thought of quiet, unassuming me holding a real weapon. I didn't flinch. I just took a slow sip of water, looked him dead in the eye, and gave a calm smile. "Only the ones who shot first," I replied softly. The table erupted into even louder laughter, assuming I was simply playing along with a movie line. "Cute," Parker smirked, leaning back. "What's your call sign then, G.I. Jane?" "Reaper," I said. Instantly, the laughter died. Across the table, my uncle's best friend, a decorated, retired Navy SEAL who had spent the entire evening completely silent, choked violently on his drink. His eyes locked onto mine. He knew exactly who I was. "My name is Jenna. I'm 29 years old, and to my family, I am the definition of ordinary." For the past 7 years, whenever anyone asked what I did for a living, my parents would quickly chime in to save me the embarrassment. They'd tell everyone I worked a simple IT logistics desk job for a government contractor, staring at spreadsheets in a windowless room. I never corrected them. It was easier that way, and honestly, it kept me safe. This Thanksgiving, the spotlight, as usual, belonged to my cousin Parker. Parker is 32, works in corporate sales, and talks about closing a deal as if he's leading troops into battle. He loves being the center of attention, commanding the room with loud, arrogant stories of his minor achievements. My family hung on his every word, occasionally glancing at me with pity. To them, I was still the fragile, quiet bookworm who got startled by loud thunder. But there was one person at the table who wasn't buying Parker's performance. Sitting quietly across from me was Marcus, a friend of my uncle. Marcus was a retired Navy SEAL, a man whose silence carried more weight than all of Parker's shouting. While Parker boasted, Marcus kept his eyes moving, quietly observing the room with the sharp focus of a predator. He had been watching me all evening, studying my posture and how I scanned the exits. He knew there was a lie in this room. The laughter evaporated faster than a flashbang in a dark room. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, and absolute. Marcus, the man who had been a statue for 3 hours, was suddenly convulsing, his face turning a deep, dangerous shade of purple as he choked on his drink. He slammed his glass onto the mahogany table, the sound echoing like a gunshot, and grabbed a napkin to his mouth. For a second, the family panicked, worried they'd killed the guest. But I watched him. I saw his eyes. He wasn't just choking. He was trying to breathe past the sheer, visceral shock of hearing that name. When he finally composed himself, wiping his mouth with a shaking hand, he didn't look at my cousin Parker. He didn't look at my uncle. He looked directly at me, his gaze shifting from casual observation to intense, professional scrutiny. "Sector 4B, the Kandahar breach," Marcus rasped, his voice rough and devoid of the polite social mask he'd worn all dinner. "The extraction team said the asset didn't exist. They said it was a ghost protocol." Toby, oblivious and desperate to regain his lost spotlight, chuckled nervously, trying to wave off the moment. "Okay, relax, old man. She's just messing with you. It's a movie quote or something, right, Jen?" But Marcus didn't even blink at Parker. He remained locked on my face, waiting for an answer to a question that only one person in this room, one person in this country, could answer correctly. As soon as dinner cleared, I stepped out onto the back deck, letting the cool evening air soothe my burning cheeks. But I wasn't alone for long. The heavy sliding glass door clicked open, and Marcus stepped out, closing it firmly behind him. The festive chatter of my oblivious family was instantly cut off. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He walked right up to me, stopping just outside my personal space, his posture rigid. "You're 29 years old," he whispered, his voice vibrating with a quiet, dangerous intensity. How does a 29-year-old girl carry a call sign that was whispered in fear across Joint Force command circles from Kabul to Africa? I leaned against the wooden railing, looking out at the dark yard. You shouldn't ask questions you don't want the answers to, Marcus. I was on that joint task force, he said, stepping closer. We were pinned down in a valley with no air support, facing certain death. Then, out of nowhere, an invisible shield protected us. A phantom intelligence specialist cleared our path and coordinated a flawless extraction. They called her the Reaper. We never saw her face. I turned to look at him, my expression hardening. The coordinate override was 777 Alpha, Marcus. I was the lead tactical drone coordinator and counter-threat marksman for that entire operation. I'm not just an IT clerk. I was the eye in the sky that kept you and your men alive. I paused. Yes, I am that ghost. Now you finally know. Marcus stared at me as if he were seeing a ghost. I couldn't blame him. To the world, I sat in a cubicle, but in reality, my IT logistics role was a cover for the United States' most advanced tactical response unit. I was recruited straight out of college at 21 for my spatial awareness and algorithmic coding skills. They didn't put me in a uniform. They put me behind a classified console, commanding a massive tactical suite. I was a digital guardian angel, a remote marksman, and a live combat coordinator rolled into one. I still remembered the night in Sector 4B vividly. Marcus's unit had been lured into a narrow, rocky canyon. The satellite feed on my monitors showed heat signatures closing in on them from 3 sides. Their communications were jammed, and they had no idea they were walking into a perfect trap. My commanding officer strictly told me to stand down and wait for authorization, but I knew deeply that by the time the administrative bureaucracy cleared, those men would be gone. I secretly overrode the system protocols, using my custom software to bypass the heavy jammed frequencies and patch directly into their headsets. Operating a high-altitude, silent tactical platform, I began neutralizing the threats blocking their escape path with pinpoint, absolute precision, guiding them step by step through the pitch-black maze. "Move 50 meters north," I had whispered into their earpieces. "The path is clear." I coordinated their entire extraction, watching through infrared as they scrambled to safety, completely unaware that their savior was a young girl sitting thousands of miles away in a secure bunker. That was the night the legend of the Reaper was born. I was a silent, invisible force that struck from the deep shadows to bring those lost soldiers back. "Why keep it a secret?" Marcus asked, his voice softening as he looked at me. "You saved dozens of lives, Jenna. You're a hero. Why let your family treat you like you're completely invisible?" I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had guided millions of dollars of advanced military technology to protect men like him. "Because they couldn't carry the weight of it, Marcus. My mother still panics if I don't answer my phone on the first ring. If she knew that I spent my 20s holding the lives of soldiers in my hands while operating from a dark, secure bunker, it would absolutely destroy her peace of mind. To them, I need to remain the safe, quiet daughter. The world is a terrifying place, and keeping them in the dark is the only way I can keep them happy." "But it isn't fair to you," Marcus countered, crossing his arms, "to let a guy like Parker look down on you. To let your entire family treat you like some pity project." "I don't need their validation," I replied simply. "The people who needed to know my name already know it. Besides, a woman with my specific training and clearance never truly retires. If the wrong people ever found out what the Reaper actually looked like, or where she lived, this quiet life would disappear in an instant. The silence is my shield. It's the only thing keeping my family safe from the shadows I spent years fighting." Marcus looked at me for a long moment, the skepticism completely gone from his eyes, replaced by a profound, heavy respect. "You're still on watch," he murmured. I just nodded slowly. When Marcus and I walked back into the living room, Parker was in the middle of another loud story. Seeing us, his eyes lit up with malicious glee. He couldn't let it go. "Look who's back," Parker sneered, raising his voice so the whole room could hear. "Did our quiet little Jenna finish telling you about her top-secret imaginary missions, Marcus? Honestly, she probably gets dizzy just playing video games." My parents smiled apologetically, but I remained silent. I didn't need to say a word. Marcus stepped forward, his massive frame instantly casting a shadow over Parker. The warm, casual guest from earlier was gone. In his place stood a legendary warrior. "Listen to me very carefully, son," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a low, icy register that made the entire room freeze. "You spend your days begging people to buy software. Jenna spent her 20s saving lives in places you couldn't find on a map. I have seen men braver than you break down in tears under a fraction of the pressure she handled every single day." Parker's jaw dropped, and he desperately tried to find something to say, but failed miserably. His smug smirk completely vanished from his face, replaced by pure, stuttering embarrassment. "She is a hero," Marcus continued, standing at rigid attention and giving me a sharp, formal military salute. "And you aren't even qualified to stand in her shadow?" My family stared in absolute, breathless, stunned shock. For the first time in my entire life, nobody looked at me with pity. They looked at me with absolute terror. I didn't stay for dessert. I quietly excused myself, grabbed my coat, and walked out the front door. Nobody tried to stop me. Behind me, the dining room remained dead silent, my family still sitting in the stunned realization that the quiet, fragile girl they thought they knew was actually a guardian of the shadows. As I drove home under the starlit sky, a sense of profound peace washed over me. I've officially stepped away from the active operations consoles. My days are much quieter now, filled with simple routines and normal, everyday interactions. But as I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, I knew the truth. You can take the soldier out of the war, but you can never truly retire the reaper. That protective instinct, the tactical mind, the split-second decision-making, it is all still there, resting just beneath the surface, waiting in case the world ever needs my shield again. It makes you wonder about the people around you. The quiet coworker in the cubicle next to you, the unassuming neighbor who always waves, or the silent relative at your holiday table. We all carry hidden chapters, and sometimes, the most extraordinary heroes are the ones who never boast. What would you do if you discovered someone in your family was keeping a massive, life-saving secret like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and please, don't forget to tell me which city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. Thank you for watching.